Hey everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to today's episode of Get Live with Dracaena Wines. Today we're going to be talking about bud break, and actually, I think everybody knows what bud break is, but of course I'm going to get into a little bit of the science aspect of what's actually happening inside the vines that cause bud break. And some of the things that people think about, lots of times people ask us, oh, what's this vintage look like? How did this water affect this vintage? And things like this. And the cool thing is, or I guess the not so best known thing is that really the vine already knows what's going to happen this vintage from the previous year. So, gosh, I'm having so much technical difficulty these past 2 weeks. Anyway, bud break actually is determined in the previous vintage. And so as bud break is happening, it is an exciting time of year, right? Everybody's looking at it, and it's all of our hopes and dreams of this vintage, what's going to be created this year. So it's very exciting, but it actually is about last vintage. Why can I not find these pictures? Here we go. I am having such an off day today. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so bud break and what is going on inside the vintage. Thanks for understanding. So bud break is actually considered a phenological aspect in the growth of the vine. And phenology is basically just things that happen naturally and periodically in plants and animals. So it's not anything that somebody is impacting onto it. These are natural things that are occurring. And grapevine phenology is extremely dependent on climate, the temperature of which those vines are in. So as I said earlier, the buds for this vintage actually began their story in the last vintage. And here's a little fact that I don't think a lot of people actually understand or know, is that in order for the buds to be formed, the vine must actually go through something that is called endodormancy. And this phase is actually a chilling requirement. So the vines require cold weather in order to allow the vines to create buds and allow bud break to occur in the next vintage. So this is a beautiful vine going through bud break, okay? And what happens is as the temperatures drop, okay, the vines themselves start to send those sugars that are in their shoots and everything. They send those sugars and the water reserve down to the roots for protection. And this is the first stage of dormancy. As the temperature decreases, now not freezing, okay, once the temperatures go below freezing, it really doesn't have an impact on this endodormancy, right? It can damage the vines, but vines can survive freezing temperatures for a short period of time. So this endodormancy gives the vine its chilling requirements. And if this cold requirement is not met, then this can cause delayed bud break or even worse, prolonged dormancy. So not getting cold enough can actually cause the vine not to be able to produce buds in that following vintage. So if this happens, it then can affect the vine and impact the overall quality and the quantity of the grape. So if we don't get that chilling factor, we might not get enough bud break. We may not get enough life in that vine to create a life of the next vintage, those buds. So once the vine has entered ecodormancy, so after endodormancy, temperatures start to increase. And as those temperatures increase, that second phase of dormancy is going to occur. And that second dormancy is called ecodormancy. Now this occurs when the temperatures start to increase to about 10 degrees Celsius or about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, this is that perfect time where what's going to happen is the vines are going to take those reserves that they shoved down into the vine, into the roots, and they're going to allow them to start to come back up into the rest of the vine, into its limbs basically. So this is actually the most dangerous part or most dangerous time for the vine, because once it has entered this dormancy phase, okay, they are susceptible to the temperatures. So once it's in ectodormancy, it is susceptible to any temperature change there is. So during endodormancy, right, that chilling requirement, even if the temperature rises for a period of time, the vine can't enter bud break because of naturally occurring hormone known as ethylene. That's inside the plant. But once the vine is in ectodormancy, as those temperature rises, there's other hormones, auxin and gibberellin, which trigger the vines to wake up and start sending those reserves everywhere to its limbs. Once those reserves are out in the limbs, now life truly begins again, and we get to see those little hard nodes that are on, that we've, pruned back to. We get to see them start to come alive. But once they start to come alive, the temperature can be really dangerous to them. And those environments that have spring frost can truly kill those buds. Fortunately, we can get secondary or even tertiary buds, but for each of those, we lose dramatically the amount of production that those vines can produce. So if that primary bud can produce 100%, then like that secondary bud is only going to produce like 40%. And if we go all the way to that tertiary bud, we're looking at 10% of that production. So now bud break, so this is kind of a chart of that endodormancy and ectodormancy and how we can see how that vine is going to produce. Now this is an almond tree, but it is basically going through the same process of endo and ectodormancy. Now, once we know that bud break has occurred, it can occur at very, very different times depending on lots of different things. The vineyard site can cause an impact on it, grape variety, and of course the climate. And early bud break, as I said, can be extremely worrisome. So everybody gets excited when that first bud break occurs, but if that temperature drops as a spring frost occurs, we can totally end up losing our crop for the season. So I hope I didn't get too technical, and thank you for going through with that little technical issue at the beginning. But so this is just a bit about bud break, endodormancy, ectodormancy, and how the temperatures around us play an impact on it. And get out into those vineyards and take a look at all the beautiful green growth that is going on at this moment, because it is a always beautiful time to visit the vineyards. So I will see you soon on the next Get Live with Dracaena Wines. Please let me know if there's anything you would like me to cover in a future live. And come visit us at downtown on the corner of 13th and Pine. And I will see you soon. Slancha.